As time goes on, baseball stadiums become holy grounds, a place where friendship and family reinforce their bonds through a mutual love of a simple ball game and the inherent pleasure of being together. These monumental structures, fashioned from concrete and steel, serve a purpose far beyond baseball itself. A sacred ground where people shed their monotheism and pray to the baseball gods to favor their team. Every diamond, from Little League to the big leagues, serve as a temple to the game, each with their own story. Today, we'll be talking about one of the most iconic jewel box ballparks ever constructed. One of the first concrete and steel behemoths erected to host the beautiful game of baseball. Located in the Queensgate neighborhood in the city that birthed Major League Baseball, Cincinnati. For 58 and a half seasons, this ballpark stood at the corner of Findlay and Western, hosting some of the greatest players and moments the game has ever seen. From the most prolific groundskeeper of all time, to Major League Baseball's first night game. Welcome back to The Bad Baseball Fan. Let's explore the history of Crosley Field. Before we jump in, I just want to thank you for being here and remind you to like, subscribe, and comment. Your engagement and support makes these historical explorations possible. Alright, let's begin. Many baseball fans are aware that the first openly professional baseball team came out of Cincinnati, Ohio in 1869. That original iteration of the Cincinnati Red Stockings disbanded following the 1870 season, and it would be more than a decade before another team established themselves in the city. A charter member of the American Association, the Cincinnati Reds were established ahead of the 1881 season. This Cincinnati baseball team spent its first 3 years at a field known as the Bank Street Grounds, located roughly where Bank Street meets Western Avenue and McLean Avenue today. Following the 1883 season, they were forced to vacate the facility because their lease had been sneakily sold behind their backs to a new Union Association ball club. So, ahead of the 1884 season, they moved a few blocks south to an old, abandoned brickyard, and built a new ballpark at the corner of Findlay and Western to be known as League Park. The Cincinnati Reds would call this lot home for the next 87 seasons. During their time at League Park, the grounds were tended by one John Schwab, who, in 1893, took his son Matty under his wing as an apprentice. Put a pin in that for now and remember Matty Schwab's name. He may just be an apprentice groundskeeper at this point, but we'll circle back to him. Cincinnati's League Park had a limited capacity of only 3,000 during its first decade of use, seeing its Reds leave the American Association and join the National League during that time. It was given a facelift in 1894 to raise the seating to 7,000 and had to be partially rebuilt following a fire in 1901, giving it a final seating count of 9,000. Desiring a more modern baseball facility, team owner John Brush had a new grandstand built for the ball club, to be known to the world as the Palace of the Fans. Construction lasted through 1901, and she was ready for use for the 1902 season. And when all was said and done, the new grounds had an increased capacity of 12,000 seats. This new, wooden Palace of the Fans was not built to last, though, only lasting 10 seasons before Reds president Gary Herman made the decision to modernize once again. Having witnessed the construction of new concrete and steel ballparks in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, Herman realized the opportunities that the new fireproof ballparks could provide, and sometime in 1911, he hired local architect Harry Hake Sr. to design his new palace. Plans were drawn up. The Palace of the Fans and any remaining grandstands from League Park were demolished, and construction quickly began upon the conclusion of the 1911 season. The project was completed at a cost of $250,000 and was completely finished in time for the 1912 baseball season. In 5 months, the new concrete and steel ballpark was erected, featuring double-decked grandstands that wrapped around home and extended to the end of the diamond. Beyond the double-decked grandstands were single-decked covered pavilions that extended to the foul poles, with the only outfield seating being a 4,500-seat section in right field that would come to be known as the Sun Deck. Capacity at this new stadium was initially 20,696 and featured a large outfield with 352 feet down the left field foul line, 400 feet down the right field foul line, and 420 feet to dead center. The two grandstands met behind home plate at a hard angle, giving it a distinctive V shape at the backstop, and the outfield featured a raised terrace as you approached the wall. When I first saw that, I thought, neat, a primitive warning track. But that actually wasn't the intended purpose. The raised earth, along with some areas in foul territory, actually functioned as overflow seating when needed. Speaking of the earth, from my understanding, groundskeeper Matty Schwab designed a first-of-its-kind underground irrigation system for the ballpark, making the playing surface one of the premier places to play baseball. With all of its quirks and character, the Cincinnati Reds had a shining new ballpark going into their 1912 campaign. When the ballpark opened its gates on April 11, 1912, the Titanic was still on her lone voyage. Opening 9 days prior to Navin Field in Detroit and Fenway Park in Boston, Cincinnati's new ballpark was the third ever concrete and steel ballpark. An overcapacity crowd of 26,336 fans showed up to the still unnamed stadium to watch the Reds host the visiting Cubs. Down 5-1 going into the bottom of the fourth inning, the Reds put up a 6 spot to take a 7-5 lead. They never looked back, closing the game out for a 10-6 win, celebrating their new ballpark in style. A day later, Gary Herman decided to name the park Redland Field in honor of the ball club. The Reds would go on to finish just under 500 and in 4th place in the National League. A rather unremarkable season in a remarkable ballpark. Redland Field hosted 344,000 fans in its inaugural season, and just like the team, finished in 4th place. The Reds' performance was consistently mediocre throughout the 1910s, as was attendance at their new ballpark. Through the 1918 campaign, the Reds finished as low as last in the NL and as high as 3rd. Redland Field, in spite of being a state-of-the-art facility, struggled to bring in competitive attendance numbers, and finished as high as 4th place, but as low as last. As a matter of fact, 1914 saw Redland Field host an abysmal 100,791 fans across the season, even less than they would host during the war-ravaged 1918 campaign, when they saw 163,009 people enter the gates. Everything took a turn for the positive in 1919. Led by manager Pat Moran, the Reds finished the season with a 96-44 record and in 1st place, earning their first ever National League pennant. Attendance numbers took a huge jump, as for the first time since its inaugural season, Redland Field surpassed 300,000 fans for the year. Not only was this their first time hitting that mark in 6 years, but they also managed to pass the 400,000 mark and the 500,000 mark for the first time, hosting 532,501 fans across the year. Led at the plate by Ed Roush, who batted .321, and on the mound by Dutch Ruther, who posted a 19-6 record with a 1.82 ERA. They cruised to their first pennant, claiming it by 9 games over the New York Giants and earning themselves a spot in their first World Series. The 1919 Fall Classic was one of those rare World Series to be formatted in a best-of-9 style, with Redland Field hosting games 1, 2, 6, and 7. Cincinnati took 4 of the first 5 games, including their 2 at Redland Field, putting the Sox backs up against the wall. Chicago clawed back into the series, taking games 6 and 7 in Cincinnati before returning to Chicago for what would end up being the series-ending game. Hod Eller took the mound for the Reds and Lefty Williams for the Sox, with Eller getting the best of Williams, who was shelled in the first inning. Jumping out to a 5-run lead after 2 innings of work, Cincy sealed the deal and took the game 10-5. The Cincinnati Reds were champions of the world for the first time ever. Less than a year after winning the World Series, their championship had its validity challenged when it was uncovered that 8 of the White Sox had conspired with gamblers to throw the 1919 World Series. Even with the power of hindsight, there have been plenty of baseball historians who believe the White Sox would have likely won the series had they been on the up and up. But I don't necessarily subscribe to this line of thinking. The White Sox were heavy favorites to win the series, but that doesn't mean they were guaranteed to. We now know that the Black Sox themselves went back and forth on the issue throughout the series, meaning they threw some games and played hard in others. So I believe it's virtually impossible to actually analyze the validity of the Reds' championship. Unfortunately for Cincinnati, this scandal burned a lasting mark into their first championship. The Reds would fail to capture another pennant throughout the next decade, though it should be noted that the Cincinnati Reds finished every year of the decade, excluding 1929, with a winning record. Attendance at Redland Field often mirrored that of their team's play on the field. Good, but not incredible. Most seasons through the 1920s saw attendance fall somewhere between 300,000 and 600,000, though they did eclipse the 600,000 mark for the first time in 1926, when the 87, 67, and 3 second-place Reds drew 672,987 to their games. The lack of championships didn't mean the decade was stale, though. June 2, 1921, saw the first ever over-the-fence home run at Redland Field, as outfielder Pat Duncan smashed a ball over the left center wall. It took more than 9 full seasons before the feat was accomplished, and a patrolling police officer on York Street was struck with the home run ball. Redland Field also got its first makeover during the decade, when in 1927, home plate was moved up roughly 20 feet and the lower grandstand was extended towards home, cutting the outfield distances down to a much more hitter-friendly 339 feet down the left field line, 377 down the right field line, and 400 feet to dead center. The franchise also added a brand new scoreboard in left center that was designed by none other than groundskeeper Matty Schwab. The system of displaying the lineups created by Schwab is still used today by most ball clubs. Just like that, Redland Field was modernized and featured an expanded capacity of 26,060. That same year, team president Gary Herman retired, and he was succeeded by one C.J. McDermott, who held that post for 2 years before he was undercut and forced out of his job. In September of 1929, a local Ford dealer and Reds fan by the name of Sidney Wheel wanted to purchase the ball club. He approached McDermott with an offer to buy his share of the team, but was rejected. Determined to reach his goal, he went behind McDermott's back to offer other minority shareholders up to 4 times the value for their shares. They caved and sold, and Wheel quickly became the majority owner, and his first move in the role was to fire McDermott. The ends ended up not justifying the means, as in order to complete his inflated purchase, he had to borrow significant capital from the Central Trust Company. If you're a student of history, you may have already connected the dots here, but quite plainly, Sidney Wheel took out large loans about a month before the stock market collapsed and the country fell into the Great Depression. Wheel was a team owner until 1933, spending his entire time with the team struggling to keep the ball club afloat. Despite his relentless efforts, the quality of play on the field and the attendance numbers were consistently bad while he was at the helm. By 1933, the Central Trust Company was forced to act and seized all of Sidney Wheel's assets. Not just the team and stadium, but his car and home too, leaving him with just the clothes on his back. Now in control of a Major League Baseball franchise, the CTC had to act quickly to stabilize the Cincinnati Reds as a business, and they quickly installed Larry MacPhail as a team president to handle the job. MacPhail was tasked with finding a permanent team owner and with devising ways to draw greater attendance to the ballpark. By 1934, MacPhail had found his man in local car manufacturer Powell Crosley of Crosley Motors Incorporated. Crosley balked at the idea of buying the team, fearful that it would turn into a bottomless money hole, but MacPhail made the matter one of civic duty, implying heavily to Crosley that if he did not buy the Reds, they would be forced to leave Cincinnati for another city. Crosley, a lifelong Reds fan, bought the team begrudgingly, not wanting to see his Reds go anywhere else. MacPhail did offer a solution to help offset some of the costs, though, when he suggested that Powell Crosley rename Redland Field in both his and his company's honor. Starting in 1934, Redland Field would forever be known as Crosley Field. Thank you for joining me for part 1 of our exploration of Crosley Field. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If you're looking for more ways to support the Bad Baseball Fan, consider becoming a member of the channel or browsing through our merch linked below. Anyways, I'll see you next time, and remember, if you like baseball, like this video and subscribe for more.